Hello everyone, my name is Adam, and in August of 2021, I flew back into China. So this video, I'm going to talk about my experiences with entering China with the quarantine process. And if you are flying back into China in 2022, this video should be hopefully as helpful to you and can help you know what to expect when entering China. Background on me: before the pandemic, I was living in China. I was living in Nanjing, working as an English teacher. I left in January of 2020 to take my vacation. I was in Thailand at the time. As we were there, we watched the pandemic start to spread and decided not to fly back to China, but instead to fly home to New Zealand to see what happens. And I was back in New Zealand for 1.5 years. The whole time I was back in New Zealand, I kept my apartment in Nanjing. I had a lot of stuff in there, and also I'd moved recently into quite a cheap place, so it wasn't too much trouble. I also luckily kept my job. My school agreed to keep me on at a reduced salary, but I provided video lessons, and there was also the understanding that I was to get back to China as soon as possible. Before I left, I did extend my work permit until August 2021, but I didn't extend my residence permit. So I had half a visa, but not the whole visa. So anyway, that was my background. Now, what I'm going to talk about in the video is the things that we did before flying, the paperwork that you get ready, buying the flight, flying the actual flight. I'm going to talk about the hotel quarantine. As soon as you land in China, you need to do the hotel quarantine, usually 2 weeks, it may be 1 week, maybe 3 weeks. After the quarantine, so I landed in Guangzhou. After the Guangzhou hotel quarantine, I flew to Nanjing. And in Nanjing, I did my home isolation for another 2 weeks. And then there was 2 weeks when I was monitored, but I was free. I had the community monitoring, but I was free to walk around outside and to re-enter society. Nothing I'm going to tell you here is legal advice. This is I'm just going to tell you my story. I hope that it's helpful, but don't, your situation might be different to mine. And also all of these rules and regulations are subject to change. We do expect that China will keep the quarantine system in place for a while there. It's proven successful so far for keeping coronavirus mostly out. But the question I want to address first is: now a good time to be in China? Is 2022 a good time to be in China? And I would say, for the most part, I would say yes. There's no problems with COVID here. There are occasional outbreaks, and when there's an outbreak, the city is kind of snapped into lockdown. And they have an amazing ability to test an entire city in a few days. And they generally lock down for a couple of weeks, and then everything's back to normal. I've been in Nanjing for 6 months. I've been back here for 6 months now, and we've been fine the whole time. We haven't had any lockdowns. There's no COVID around. You wear masks when you're in, public transport or in the big shopping malls or something, but it's mostly back to normal. In terms of coming as a teacher, there was some government regulations recently that have caused some English schools to shut down. A lot of the private training centers have had to shut down. I believe the government made it illegal to teach any school subjects outside of the school hours. But primary schools are still good, universities are still good, and there's less teachers here. There are some agencies that are still operating. There are some kindergartens. We've got primary schools, middle schools, high schools, universities that are, and also schools that teach adults. So there are jobs here, and there seems to be less foreign teachers around. A lot of them left before the pandemic or during the pandemic and haven't been able to get back. So I would say generally now is a pretty good time to be in China. But if it's your first time in China, may not be the best time to fly. The quarantine, I'll explain a bit later, but the quarantine will be a little difficult if you're not used to life in China. Before flying to China, it's just like any other time that you come. You need to get your paperwork in order. You need to get your documents. You need to get your visa ready, right? So I don't really need to say anything about that. Like, it's it does take a little longer than before. There is an extra piece of paperwork that's called an invitation letter or a PU letter. This PU letter held me up by about 6 months. Took me a while for my school to get it. I'm not sure if that's because they're difficult to get, or just because my school had, like, the teacher who had previously been doing the visa stuff had left. So the teachers that were trying to help me did not have much experience with that. So I can't really say whether it's easier or harder. But I managed to get my visa after a while. But yeah, again, I did have my work permit already made. I'm not sure if that helped or hindered my application. But this is all taken care of. This is all taken care of by your school. Basically, if you're thinking of flying to China, you need to find an employer before you come. You need to find a school, sign a contract, and the school's going to take care of the visa. So as long as you find a school that can get you that visa. Like, if you're thinking about teaching in China, make the applications, but I would say don't quit the job that you have while you wait and see if the visa will actually come through. Because I've heard some people have had trouble getting the visa or getting the invitation letter, and some people haven't. It did take me a while, but I got back. So yeah, it's a case of the visa, your work visa is made by the foreign expert certificate in the city or province that you're going to. So the school talk to them, and also the visa office, the consulate or the embassy in the place that you're living. So you can talk to them, and between you and the school, you should be able to sort out your paperwork, your visa. Flight tickets, I used a travel agent. I don't usually use a travel agent. I would recommend using a travel agent. They know what's going on. They're more up to date with the rules. You could buy directly from the airline. The airline will tell you about the regulations, but I found it a lot more comfortable with the agent. She really knew her stuff, knew what was going on. You should try and fly direct if you can. I had an idea in my head to fly from New Zealand to Singapore and then Singapore to China, because I could enter China at Nanjing, which is where I was living. But apparently the stopover was not going to fly. So I needed a flight that went from New Zealand, left New Zealand and landed in China. I guess maybe a transfer is acceptable, but stopover is not okay. If you're an American and you want to fly to China, you need to fly from America to China and don't stop over in somewhere else on the way. So the first place you land in China, your point of entry, that's where you're going to do your first quarantine in the hotel, your first quarantine hotel. There's no way out of that. As soon as you land any international flights, you're shuffled through the airport and gone straight to the hotel for the quarantine. Before flying to China, you need the 2 COVID tests, the swab test and the antibody test. Where I was living in New Zealand, there was a travel clinic who knew exactly, knew exactly what to do, and I just needed to book in with them, and I told them when my flight is, and they booked me in, and they did all of that. So it wasn't a regular COVID testing center. It was a special place because they had to give me the special, test results. The test results I needed for the health portal. There's a health portal that you get on your phone that you have to upload your test results to, so you can get the green code so that you can fly. Now, the one thing is that I was told the 2 COVID tests you need to take them within 48 hours of flying, is what you're told. But I was flying on a Thursday evening, and if I had waited till Wednesday morning, I wouldn't have been guaranteed to get the results back. So 48 hours before actually means 2 days before. I had the tests on the Tuesday afternoon. It was a little confusing for me and a little scary, because it definitely said, the paper that I got said 48 hours before flying. But the people in the clinic and also in the visa office, they reassured me that as long as it's 2 days before the day you fly, it's fine. So yeah, the green code, when you get the visa or when you get the flight ticket, you'll get information about this health portal. There's a website you can go to on your phone. You fill in the information, and once you've filled in everything and uploaded your test results, it will give you this kind of green code. The green code I showed in the airport in New Zealand before I got on my plane, and I also showed it at China after I landed. So the green health code, you need that to get on the airport. They'll give you, when you get the visa, they'll give you the address, the website to go to and find that thing. Flying was weird. It was horrible. Strangest flight I've been on in my life. It was the flight attendants were fully kitted out. Some people were fully kitted out in PPE. Most people just had a mask. If you want to, you can go for the goggles and the PPE suit. That's fine. You won't look out of place. Most people just had masks on, and you kept your mask on the whole time on the plane. It was very nervous energy on the flight. People were spaced apart, so there was, this picture is not from my flight, but there was an empty seat in between everyone. Instead of getting meals, they just gave us a bag of snacks. But they told us not to even eat on the plane. If we could, just don't eat, because it risk of spreading germs or possibly spreading the virus. The snacks turned out to be great, because when I got into quarantine, they were wonderful. The airline even put in some like little packet of laundry detergent and some toothpaste, so that was really good. And when you get to China, it's weird, it's confusing, it's messy. The airport is just, everyone who lands, you're just kind of funneled through this thing where you scan this thing, sign this thing, you get a COVID test, you get a temperature check, you have to show the green code again. You need WeChat. So the biggest app in China, which is Weixin or WeChat, you need to have this on your phone, so you can scan the things and enter the information. If you can't speak Chinese, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. It can be done, but it's going to be difficult. I'm sure airports generally have English-speaking staff, but yeah, it's not going to be easy. So you get funneled through the airport. It took ages. Funneled us through the airport, and eventually got to the front where there were some hotel buses. We're not allowed out. There's no point when we're allowed out. We're funneled. It's a very tight passage. You go through here, you go here, you go here, you get your bags. The regular customers who have been flying, regular passengers who are flying domestically, you don't see them anywhere. It's just us. It's just the international arrivals. You get through, you get onto a hotel bus, and you go to your hotel. There was no choice of the bus there was no choice of which hotel you could go to. You just turned up. I've seen some people with really nice hotels, and I've seen some pretty bad ones. Mine was okay. Mine was fine. A quick overview of what happens when you enter China. There are 3 parts to entering China: the hotel quarantine, home isolation, and then community monitoring. If you want to find out how long all of these are going to be, you can try searching on Baidu or whatever Chinese search engine you want to use for something like this. 海外恢复隔离政策. You can search something like this, and you might find some kind of list that looks like this, that has each province and how many days. The first number is the hotel quarantine, how many days. The second number is home isolation, and the last one is community monitoring. Mine was 14, 14, and 14. So these, I guess, again, if you're flying to China, you've got an employer or your school who's looking after you, right? Make sure you get the most up-to-date information from them, for how long, and then you can plan, everything accordingly. When we got to the hotel, it was like the airport. It was very slow, confusing. The check-in was horrendous. There was a lady behind, one of those screens, like a grass screen, and she had a speaker thing that she would speak, but it was just crackly. It was super crackly. Couldn't tell if she was speaking Chinese or English, kind of thing. It took a long time to understand what was going on there. If you can't speak Chinese, again, it's going to be more difficult. It won't be impossible, but it will be more difficult. I had to pay when I arrived at the hotel. Now, usually, I was expecting to pay when I left because that's usually how hotels work. But I had to pay when I arrived there. Luckily, I had my credit card with me, and they were able to take that because I didn't have enough money in my WeChat at the time. The amount that I paid, it was 450 RMB per night for 14 nights. So it came to 6,000 RMB for 2 weeks. There was an option of this normal room or a suite. That was a normal room. Normal room was big enough. I was tempted to go for the suite, but it was something like I think it was 800 RMB per night, so almost double the cost. This is the room, so pretty simple, but adequate, like definitely big enough space to exercise. Kitted up desk and stuff to work at. Wi-Fi was fine. That's the view of Guangzhou. Very nice, mountains in the background. It was summer, so it was super hot, but the hotel obviously had the air conditioning. The food was okay. So you had two choices, and one choice was the set meals. I had the choice to pay when I checked in for the set meals, so I could pay 100 RMB per day, and I'd get 3 meals every day. But there was also a choice of a menu. So I didn't pay when I checked in, which was a good idea. So what I did is I alternated days. On one day I'd get the set menu, and the next day I'd just choose from the menu, from the a la carte menu, or the delivery menu, whatever it was. So this is what a set meal would be, just kind of like if you know Chinese canteen food, cafeteria food, rice, meat, vegetables, looking like that. The other option was to order from a menu, which I think may have been cooked in-house or may have been delivered from outside. I couldn't really tell. You pay for the food with WeChat. So if you don't have WeChat, if you don't have money in your WeChat wallet, right? When you get WeChat, you can link it to your Chinese bank card, and then you can have a WeChat wallet. If there's no money in your WeChat wallet, it's going to be very difficult. So like I said, you can pay when you check in. If you don't have a WeChat wallet, this is what you should do. Pay when you check in, pay for the set meals. I don't see how else you could do it, because ordering from the menu. So this is some random stuff that I ordered from the menu: fried egg, chips, chicken, broccoli, noodles. The menu looks like this. So it's just like Ele.me or Waimai. You order food from the menu and you pay for it with WeChat on your phone, or maybe Alipay as well. I don't know. So if you don't have WeChat wallet, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to miss out. There was a WeChat group. So when you arrived, you had to scan. You entered this WeChat group, which was basically you and everyone that's staying at the hotel and the staff. So you can discuss things if you run out of, if you want some clean towels or fresh sheets, or you want, you got some problem in your room, you talk to them in the group and they can sort it out. This is me asking about whether someone can help me make a SIM card, buy a new SIM card, and the answer was no, because when you get a SIM card, you need your ID. You need to go in person and you need to have your ID. There were temperature checks twice a day, so knock on the door and use the temperature gun. There was also COVID tests every couple of days. You never get used to the nose swabs. They're just horrendous, but they're fine. There was also a few health questionnaires asking you not just about your physical, like how are you staying healthy, but also mentally, like are you coping okay? For me, being shut in a room for 2 weeks is fine, was not really much of a problem, but I can understand that some people would find that difficult. So if you think it's going to be hard for you to stay, like I literally didn't leave my hotel room for 2 weeks. So if you think that's going to be difficult, it might not be a right thing for you. There's the view again. There's the room again. That's basically all I did, is working, playing VR, reading, and exercising. So while you're in the hotel, the staff will ask you what you're going to do after your first quarantine. You can't just do the 2 weeks and then leave. They need to know where you're going. There needs to be, recorded what's going on. Because I landed in Guangzhou, I had to fly from Guangzhou to Nanjing. So I had that flight already booked. I bought the flight before I bought the flight with the Guangzhou flight together. So I bought New Zealand to Guangzhou, Guangzhou to Nanjing. The day you arrive at the quarantine hotel is day 1 and you leave on day 14. So it's actually 13 nights. Now we thought it was 14 nights. So my flight that I originally booked to Nanjing was on the 15th day. So I told them about that and they just said, that's okay, you stay another night, it's fine. But I could have changed it. I could have moved it forward one day. That was just the way they count it. Because I already had an apartment, my school was able to get in there, clean the apartment, put some food in there, and connect the internet and make sure that the apartment complex people knew that I was coming back, right? So the quarantine hotel has to know where you're going, and the place that you're going has to know that you're going to be arriving there. You need to be kept track of, right? The airport was horrendous. It was maybe one of my worst airport experiences. There's all of the quarantine people after doing the checkout, which was also a pain. Got into various buses. So all these buses of quarantine people, messed up and suited up, arrived at this one part of the airport, which was separate to the regular airport area. So we had just go through again, showing the tickets, signing forms, this, that. There was not enough staff to deal with it. It took ages. I had a flight at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I asked the hotel, can I get that flight? And they said, yeah, sure, it's fine. There was no, I didn't get that flight. Even with pushing me to the front of the line, I still didn't catch it. If you're moving on after your quarantine hotel, book an afternoon flight or an evening flight. I would say the best time would be around 3 or 4 p.m. because everyone checks out. You check out in the morning, all the buses of all the quarantine people arrive at the airport, and everyone has to get protest. And so I ended up with an 8 p.m. flight, and there was literally nothing. I was just in this kind of waiting room where there was no shops, nothing except a bathroom, just to sit and wait. So if you bring some snacks from the hotel, that'll be good. And then we got on the airplane. So there was 2 people on my flight. There was me and another guy that were flying from Guangzhou to Nanjing, messed up. Once all the normal passengers had got on, we got on, and we were put right at the back of the plane, kind of separate, like a few rows separate from the regular passengers. And then in Nanjing, we had to get off the plane first and talk to the official there. There was some officer there who had to make sure where we were going and that people were ready to receive us. So my apartment complex or my school had sent a guy to pick me up, a driver to pick me up, who kind of knew the situation. And so he came, picked me up. The officer in the airport's like, oh, you're here to, you've got this. Okay, sweet. Drove me home. And I stayed home for 2 weeks. Different in different places. I live alone, so that was fine. If you have other family members, I don't know how that would work. I don't know how home isolation works. If you're not, I guess if you have family members who are already in China that you're joining, you'd probably have to go to another hotel or extend the hotel stay. So while I was in home isolation, and there was one guy who was my minder, who was checking on me every day. He gave me a little thermometer thing, which I just check under the armpit. twice a day and messaged to him. We also had COVID tests, still not as many as, not as often as every second day, but fairly often, every 3 or 4 days. The guy would just call me and say, okay, with the van's here, and I'd have to like put on a mask and go out front, and this van would pull up, and the guy just sat in PPE in the back doing a swab test and then drive off. It was very, very strange. But yeah, fine. And then the next day I'd get the results and I'd have to send it to the Minder. The Minder also helped me get food deliveries. But if he wasn't around, I was allowed. My door wasn't welded shut. I was told to stay home. I was allowed to, obviously I had to take my rubbish out in the community. And I went to pick up, I was getting a lot of deliveries, food deliveries. So I was allowed to go and pick up my food deliveries. I could have, I don't know. I mean, I could have probably gone out and just gone and walked around. I stayed in my community for those 2 weeks, but I was allowed, I mostly stayed at home, but I was allowed to go out and walk around the community a bit, as long as I had a mask on. And then after 2 weeks, I had the final COVID test and I was free to go out. But the Minder guy told me to avoid kind of very crowded places, for a while. And my school gave me another few weeks to rest because there was a story of a foreigner who'd come back and tested positive something crazy, like 35 days after arriving. I still had to, there was 2 weeks of community monitoring where I was still taking my temperature twice. I was free to go out, but I was still taking my temperature twice a day, and I was still having COVID tests now and again. And then after that, 14 days. So it was 2 weeks at the hotel, 2 weeks home isolation, 2 weeks free, but still monitored. And at the end of that 14 days, I had the real final COVID test. And I was let free back into China. Let out, let free. Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, China is basically back to normal. You wear a mask on transport and in the big shopping malls or the restaurants, but it's basically back to normal. Everything's good. All right, this video has gone on long enough. I'm gonna stop it there. I'm sure there's things I've missed. If you've got questions, you're welcome to ask me in the comments. I may or may not be able to answer them, but I'll definitely try. This channel is going to be, I think ESL teaching videos and maybe some kind of life in China stuff. So if that's interesting, you can subscribe or not. I hope the video is helpful to some of you. If you're coming to China and you're doing the quarantine, good luck. It's not that bad. Just make sure you bring enough snacks, enough things to occupy yourself while you're stuck. And get your VPN. Make sure you got your VPNs before you come here on your computer or on your phone. Apart from that, yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.